Okay, everybody. So for the next part of our Project 3 walkthrough, we're going to be starting to work on Pandora's box object. So the first thing you need to do is open up Pandora's box in 3D Studio Max. For this demo, I'm going to be using Maya because I don't have Max, but the steps are generally going to be the same. And if anyone has any trouble doing this in Max in class, I'll sit down with them and we can try to puzzle it out. I'm also going to include a PDF that has Max specific instructions in it. So between the two things, hopefully we'll figure this all out. So the first thing we need to do, so let me rewind a little bit. So what we're going to do in Max or Maya is add an animation to the lid so that the lid will open. And so the first thing we need to do in that regard is to adjust the pivot point on the lid because it's not in the right place for the kind of animation I want to do anyway. So I'm just going to set it back here. And generally speaking, the animation I want to do is just going to be a rotation up, like till about there. And so what I'm going to do is on frame 1, I'm going to do a keyframe of the lid closed. And then on, say, like frame 60 or 70, I'm going to set a keyframe of it open. And now it's just as simple as that. So I'm not an animator, so I have, like almost no experience animating, and I have like very, this is not something that's intended to be really difficult. So it is that simple. Just animate the lid opening. The real key point is taking this and getting it into Unreal, and then we're going to dig into doing some actual blueprint scripting to get it to do some things we want it to do. So let's go ahead and, with Pandora's box selected, let's export it. Go up to File, and let's do Game Exporter, and I believe this is the method that we're using in 3D Studio Max 2. I think it has something that's pretty comparable. And let's go to, so let's choose our path first. What we want to do is save this into the models folder. And navigate through all of my projects. Let's see, where am I? Project 3. Pretty sure that's where we're doing this. Models. So hopefully you've created a models folder in your Project 3. If you haven't, you can go ahead and create one. Choose that. And then let's go up here to animation clips. And this is where we need to add the animation clip. And so go ahead and click on this plus sign and then name the clip. And we're going to name it Open. And I'll set this to 60. Under settings, we're going to go ahead and deselect embed media. That plugs in, or likes to sort of package all of the textures and various bits and bobs in a kind of a weird way. I always just turn it off because it never seems to come in correctly. And then under File Prefix, I'm going to call it Pandora's box. export successful. Let's go back to Unreal, and then you get this little message, so let's click import. And now we've got our import options. Now, there's a couple of things we're going to tweak in here, or at least double check, so bear with me. And this will be in the PDF, so if you can't read it in the video, I don't know how the quality is in the video, you can open it up in the PDF and zoom in. So what we're going to do is set use T0 as ref pose. We're going to double check that there's none selected for skeleton, because we didn't have a skeleton. What we want is for Unreal to generate a skeleton for us, basically. Normal input method, we're going to say import normals. So rather than have Unreal regenerate the normals, I have the normals set kind of in a specific way on this model, and if you have Unreal regenerate the normals, the normal map will look a little weird. So we want it to import the normals that I have set on this model. And then import animations. That way our animations come in. And that should be it. Go ahead and click import all. It's going to bring in some stuff. Let's check our models folder. You'll see it brought in, well, mat, we brought the skeletal mesh, we have the animation, and then we have a physics asset. Let's just go ahead and click save all while we're here. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to do is just set up the material. So while we're here in the models folder, let's go ahead and add an import. And let's go to our Project 3 resources, and let's find Pandora's box base color, metallic, normal, and roughness. There's this Pandora's box E. Honestly, I don't even remember what that was for. I don't think we need it. I looked at it, it looks like an emissive. I'm not sure what I was thinking when I created that, but we can ignore it. But these guys are important. Let's click open. And these will import those in, and we're going to say yes when it asks us if we want the normal map to be a normal map. Click OK. And then we're going to do something that's a little different for two of these textures. And this is a little hard to explain, but for certain types of textures, like textures, for example, like the roughness or the metallic that we use as masks, technically it's better to set them up a certain way. I'll go ahead and double click the roughness. And I didn't have you do this before because it's just kind of additional complexity that isn't necessary, but in situations like this where you're using an external tool like Substance Painter, which is what I use to make this texture, it's going to export these textures expecting that the setting is going to be set this way. So once you've double clicked on the texture, go over here in the details panel, go down to where it says texture, and then the sRGB, we're going to deselect that. And then go ahead and save. And honestly, I don't fully understand what this does. It has something to do with the gamma, I think, and just the way, like the math behind how these things are calculated. And so if for example, if Substance Painter is exporting the textures, assuming that this is going to be set this way, it'll look weird if you don't do that. Follow suit in Unreal. If you're creating textures from scratch in like Photoshop, which is what you guys will be doing for Project 2, you can just adjust them so that it's not really necessary and avoid that complexity. But these ones were created in such a way that we needed to do this. So let's go ahead and open up Pandora's box matte, and then we'll just plug our textures in as we've done before. Drag in base color, plug it in, metallic, plug that in, normal, plug that in, Let's give ourselves a little more room here. And then roughness. Plug that in. And then go ahead and save. And we'll see where we're at. Close that. Let's just do a save all over here. And then let's just double click the Pandora's box open. This is just the skeletal mesh, and just double check to make sure that the material went on okay. It looks right. So the next thing we're going to do is tweak the physics asset that's associated with this thing. So when we imported this thing in, it brought three different things in. The basic skeletal mesh, the animation itself, and then something called a Pandora's box physics asset. And this is, I think you can roughly think of this as sort of like the collision mesh, but the collision mesh that is specifically for skeletal meshes and affects how it interacts with things. And so what we need to do is it imports it in. It creates a default for it that's a little funky, so we're going to fix that. So where it says Pandora's box open physics asset, double click that. And you'll notice it has these two little capsules on it, which are not very great for something like this, because it doesn't represent the shape of this box very well at all. So what we're going to do is just change this primitive type to box, and then click generate all bodies. And now we've got something that's a little more representative. It's not perfect, and I think in my PDF, and the old way I did this was I created a little bit more refined version of this, but it's not really necessary. I think this is easy and efficient, and it's, it's representative enough. So go ahead and click save. And now what we're going to do is bring this into the scene and start adding some functionality to it.